You just got into med school and now you're confused about all these topics. Hi, I'm T, a recently graduated medical student who's about to start my internship. I'll give you some words of wisdom and advice that I wish someone told me when I first started and was in your shoes. Come along and we'll move to our first point. Talk about finances, which I think is a really big topic that doesn't really tend to get discussed as much. The first thing is your HECS debt, so always have a look and see how much you're paying. Consider whether you're bonded, BMP, so under the medical scheme versus Commonwealth supported, CSP, or whether you're at a FFP, a full fee paying institution such as Macquarie or Bond. Look through how much you owe, see if you need to take out loans. Make sure to sign up for Opal concession card for reduced public transport fees in New South Wales. Also sign up for student memberships and take advantage of the discounts that you get as a student, whether that be going to the movies. The biggest one would be the Apple Education Store for MacBooks, iPads, and often when you purchase those, they'll have a deal where you get free AirPods. Next is Student Edge, Student Beans, and also cafes and dessert places like Yochi or local stores. In terms of your schedule, you should treat it as a 9 to 5 from Monday to Friday. You will often get your term schedule quite late, sometimes the week before or even a few days before, especially during like hospital placements because things are always changing around and supervisors may suddenly be on, long-term service leave. Some people will need to work jobs in order to keep afloat, especially if you're moving interstate or out of home and you need to pay for rent and accommodation, which is really, really expensive in Sydney. The ideal job for a medical student, definitely a casual job where you can kind of pick and choose your shift, usually on the weekends. Common jobs for med students that I saw being self-employed or tutoring for a company, often either HSC subjects, plus minus any medicine entry things like interview prep, UCAT prep and so forth. Possible jobs that you can do would include working at the hospital as a ward orderly. Otherwise, if you completed a previous degree before, such as nursing or physio, some students will pick up some shifts as well. A job that I recommend is a casual job affiliated with UNSW where you work as a UNSW ambassador. I was part of the EDI program where we visited gateway schools and really rewarding, flexible, you can pick and choose your shifts, you get paid for training, and it was also quite high paying as well. I also met a lot of people and it was a really nice way to kind of de-stress. Another important thing that I don't really see people talking about is seeing if you're eligible for Centrelink. So many of us were on either youth allowance or Austudy depending on our age. What you do is you need to search up Centrelink student application. You fill out that application via MyGov, I think, and then they'll get back to you depending on whether you're eligible and if you are, how much. You'll receive payments fortnightly, and these were a big help because you need to pay for things here and there, and because a 6-year degree from UNSW, you spend most of it studying, so it was a very good financial supplement for a lot of us and alleviated stress. Another good tip I would recommend is to have a look at the UNSW scholarships website, see if you would be eligible. One that is really important to mention would be the equity scholarship, valued at $5,000 per year for full-time study. Also look at awards. Some awards you'll be able to receive a monetary amount. For example, if you rank first in the psychiatry term assessments in your 5th or 6th year, you'll receive $500. Have a look at competitions and essays in the field that you want to specialize in. I know that Surge has like a yearly, essay competition, and I believe you get your name published. You might get a medal. There's also one for the New South Wales Medical Students Council where I think you get your work published. Another thing with finances that I should have done earlier is actually tracked my finances. After the year ends, you look at all the categories and see which category did you spend the most on and was it for a good reason. It helps you to see where you can cut back down on expenses as well. Similar to the previous topic of finances, a majority of your classmates will have doctor parents or come from wealthy families. If you're from, southwestern Sydney, greater Western Sydney area, or from a less privileged background, there might be times where you'll feel out of place or feel like you don't belong. Representation matters. We need more people like you, more people like me. If you feel like you don't belong, you do, and you deserve to be here. Even if your mind is saying a different thing, you just need to trust that you're here for a reason. You deserve to be here. But it might also be a bit harder to find your people as a result, just naturally because you have less similarity. And so you might not be able to relate to all of your peers as much. Even though I say that, in my experience, at least in my cohort, we did have a quite sizable amount of people who had a similar background like SWS or GWS. So like I said before, you won't be alone. You're going to meet a lot of different people and archetypes in med school. Types of people that you might meet include gunners, last-minute crammers, the extremely smart person who's just built different, so they barely study, or they say that they barely study, but they get top scores, the people who don't pull their weight during group projects, and the kind upperclassmen or the people in the grade above who top the grade and then pass down their notes or their Enki for your cohort. Personally, I was pretty lucky that I didn't really meet or encounter any or many gunners, but you might not be as lucky. The priority here is to try and focus on yourself, your goals and your achievements, and try not to compare yourself to other people too much. I think comparing yourself a little bit bit is useful. So for example, seeing where everyone is and whether you're up to speed with everyone, but just don't do it all the time. Otherwise you just stress yourself out. Everyone has the different way of studying. You know, you don't have to do Anki to pass. Some people are really good at just like reading over their notes and remembering. Other people like to use study groups. Find out what works for you. A good anecdote I can share with you would be, personally, I get super stressed out before exams if I'm in the same vicinity as other people who are stressed out, or if I'm near people who are doing cramming last minute. So my strategy would be that I would just avoid them completely. Before exams, I would just go off on my own, and when it's exam time, I'll go straight to exam. That way I would avoid them. And I found that this was associated with increased marks towards my later years as well. It's to take everything everyone says with a grain of salt. Don't let people stress you out or psych you out. There may be some situations where everyone is a bit stressed out or everyone is a bit negative. You're hearing things here and there about what might be on the exam. Person X said this, person Y said this. It just doesn't turn out to be true. So again, take everything everyone says with a grain of salt. Always verify the statements that are being told to you. Focus on yourself. Finally, it is okay to be average. But med school is a really interesting time. It's one of those environments where you'll meet so many accomplished and smart people your age. Appreciate how much time you have with them right now. It's kind of similar to the concept of high school. We get to spend so much time with people we know so well. Same thing for med school. Once you graduate, everyone kind of gets spread out into the different networks, different states, or they might even go back overseas to their home country. The final point I want to make in relation to people is it is okay if you take a bit of time to find your people, or if you feel like you don't really belong. I think imposter syndrome and the concept of belonging was a very prominent theme, at least for my med school experience. Don't worry if, you know, it's year one and you feel like you haven't really made really strong bonds. It can take a bit of time. For New South Wales, you've got 6 years anyways, plenty of time. If you find that it's still difficult, to try and go outside of the med bubble. So I did yellow shirts, street team, and then I worked casually as a UNSW student ambassador. And it was through these domains that I kind of met a lot of other people, especially outside of the med bubble as well. So it was interesting to just take your time, try and figure out your values, try and stay authentic and true to yourself, and try not to compromise who you are as a person. Okay, next point. Next up, study resources. Study resources are really important, and it's usually better and more efficient to work in a team versus by yourself. Every med school tends to have like a really good Google Drive, pass notes, or a really spectacular Enki deck from the year above that's been handed down from generation to generation. So just keep an eye out for that. Another way to get access to these resources are to make sure that you're in the Facebook group of your university, particularly in your cohort. Make sure you ask your peer mentors. Everyone gets peer mentoring in a group, so take advantage of that. But you also get the opportunity to sign up for one-on-one peer mentoring, which I highly recommend. And that's how I was able to get a hold of resources as well. My mentors were really great in answering any questions I have related to rotations. And they're really great, especially when you're making that jump from preclinical to clinical. So from year 2 to year 3, or from research back to clinical. So from year 4 to year 5, because they've been in your shoes before. They know what works, they know what doesn't. And it's nice to just have someone who has been in your shoes very recently. A lot of the times the information that they will tell you is very up to date. As always, try and figure out early your best study method, whether that be Anki, reading through past notes, making your own notes, making your own Anki deck, spaced repetition, active recall, making your own multiple choice, looking at question banks. Find out what works best and refine that method as you progress throughout medical school. I like study groups to discuss concepts, to panic, to stress, and then to also help and support each other out. During exam time, what I normally do is I find that I work best when I study on my own, but then I also ask questions to my study group, and then I find that practicing in pairs and doing mock exams, stimulating the exam, for example, whether it be an OSCE with 8 stations, 6 stations, or a Viva with 4 stations or whatever, I found that to be my best study method as it was super efficient. Personally, I didn't find Anki that useful if I didn't know the content already. I found that I wasn't able to just rote memorize. For me, it made a lot more sense to actually learn the concept, think about it, explain it, and then just apply it in an exam setting, such as someone asking me questions and me answering them. So that's personally how I learned best, and that was my method, but your method might be different. Figure out what works for you, continue to do it, and then refine your method. Okay. All right. Next,
optimize your study environment and take care of your posture. You're going to be studying a lot, especially in your final year. Final year exam block, I averaged up to 6 to 10 hours a day. It only makes sense to make sure that your study environment is comfortable. This is why it's important to have a good quality chair to protect your neck and your back, along with the monitor to prevent you from craning your neck too much.
This is a collaboration with 9am Home.
So I'll run you through the features of the chair that I'm currently sitting in, along with the monitor that I'm looking at. Bye.
Other things include conditioning yourself with a study playlist. I made one on Spotify. Tying your hair up. I would always do braids for exams. Associating study with a particular drink. For me, it was always particular Molly tea order or matcha. And also rewarding yourself for positive reinforcement. Finally, because you're studying a lot, make sure to take care of your eyes. So sometimes I would have dry eyes, so I would use eye drops as well. Figure out what's important and what's less important. Figure out your priorities in terms of your hobbies, your friends, your relationships, and allocate time accordingly. I would personally say be selective in who and what you choose to dedicate your free time to. Figure out who your support network is. If you are lucky, that will be your family, close friends, and hopefully some med peers. During this degree, it's not uncommon to have a few tough days, poor results, tiring rotations, tough experiences. It's best to have at least a few people who you can count on, who you can rely on, and vice versa as well. So you rely on them, they rely on you. Only try to maximize the things that matter. Sleep environment, diet, study methods. Try and automate or maximize the things so that you don't need to think too much, just to make things easier in terms of life admin and organizing. Do scientifically proven things to try and maintain your happiness, diet, exercise or physical movement, and trying to have a few hobbies as well. For hobbies, don't be afraid to change or to take up new hobbies. In my first and second year, I cut down on piano and instead picked up video editing. So making YouTube videos, which I'm still doing 5 years later. Then now I've kind of picked back piano as well, and I'm planning on restarting guitar. Maybe, we'll see. Also, if you start your medicine degree, you find that you absolutely hate it, it is okay to switch into a different degree. I've known of a few cases where people have done this. Remember that at the end of the day, you're doing medicine for yourself. So you don't have to do med if you don't want to or if you don't like the content. I think if you're doing it for your parents, you should have a long think about why that is. Is it because of familial pressure, or you don't want to disappoint them, or you've just been used to having to do what they've told you to do? The main thing here is you don't have to do med if you don't want to, and if you find that you don't like it as much as you thought you did, you can take a bit of time off to reconsider, look at the pros, look at the cons. I think the main thing that stops many people from jumping ship is the idea of sunk cost fallacy, which is that you've done all this preparation, you've worked so hard to just get into med school in the first place. That's the point of sunk cost fallacy. Because you've done so much, it doesn't make sense to suddenly stop now. But if you think of it from a different perspective, the first year of med school is just the first year of decades of work. So in the grand scheme of things, you actually haven't progressed so far at all. In fact, you're actually right at the start. Everyone is different, always have a big think about things, but I would say, journal down your thoughts and really examine the reasons behind you doing this degree. Don't delay happiness until the next milestone, which is something that I was guilty of, and I'm sure many of us are. Just because as people who strive to get into med school or just to do med in the first place, we tend to be very type A, goal-oriented. We're always very future thinking about what our next step should be. The point here is that medicine as a job, as a career, as a vocation is full of milestones. If you keep delaying until your next milestone, you'll have another milestone to do anyways. You'll never get the chance to truly be happy. The only fix, which is actually quite difficult to do, is to try and stay grounded in the present moment and try and enjoy where you are, which is very easy to say. Learning to be present and focusing on appreciating what I had was very instrumental. Take advantage of the fact that you're a medical student to ask for opportunities in what you want to do. Try and be proactive. This was advice that people told me so many times, and I know it's a lot easier to say than to do, particularly if you're a bit scared or you're a bit anxious because this is your first time in the clinical environment. But it'll take time. You'll be able to relax and fit in most of the times. Sometimes you just can't, and there's nothing you can do about it. Always try and stay grounded, stay humble, remember where you came from, and always remember who helped you get to where you are. A lot of the times it's a particular teacher in primary school or high school who believed in you, maybe even a careers advisor or a music teacher. And something that's important, I had repeated to me a lot, when you have great doctors, take what you like about their style and incorporate it into how you do things. Consider what made it so good and try and replicate that experience for others. When you have a really negative experience on a team or during placement, try and dissect what they did that made you feel like it was a negative experience, which is difficult because, they're obviously busy, probably burnt out, really time pressured, keeping track of a really big patient list as well. But try and remember how you felt in the moment. And once you were in their shoes, whether that be as an intern, as a resident, registrar, consultant, try to not do the same thing to your juniors. Again, easier said than done. Obviously, I'm still a junior, so I have no place to talk, but that's my mindset at the moment, and I'm going to try and up to lower your expectations. Often in high school, you go from extremely high marks, ranking high in your cohort, and then you get into med school and you find that you're average or above average at best. You might even find yourself scoring 50s or 60s for one of the very few times in your life, or even failing for the first time. The main thing here is to note that it's okay. A lot of us have failed exams, a lot of us have sat subs, and even as you try and get onto training, or you get onto training, you still need to sit some exams, and it's actually quite common to fail exams. Like, not everyone passes. Failure is actually quite normalized, and I think it's less earth-shattering than you think once you've experienced it. But I think when you experience failure for the first time, like a major failure in your eyes, it definitely is something very big, and it can be quite impactful. The main thing here always comes down to figure out your emotions. Don't bottle things up. Let yourself feel angry, frustrated, upset. Give yourself time, and then you need to get into action. Figure out what went wrong, recalibrate, and get back on your feet. For med school, it's difficult for your ego, but it's okay to be average. I would say get comfortable even with being average, because if you consider the caliber of your cohort, it's still an achievement. However, if you feel like this isn't your full potential and you can do a lot better, feel free to push yourself to become better and better as well. You'll find that often in med school, people will tell you the same advice, and sometimes it is genuinely good advice for a reason if everyone tells you the same thing. But at the end of the day, you're going to get so much advice to you from different people. You're going to get different perspectives that sometimes it might feel a bit overwhelming. And often people will have conflicting advice as well. So the key here is, even for this video, pick and choose which advice resonates with you and leave what doesn't. I would recommend recording a video, so writing a letter into a Word document to your future self. I did this, and the purpose of it is that when you're faced with tough times, you're gonna ideally rewatch that video, read the letter you wrote to yourself. Med school is often 4 to 6 years, and I think it's almost impossible to go through that long period of time without having, a single breakdown or burnout a single time. Do it just in case. If it doesn't happen, fantastic. But if it does happen, then at least you're prepared for that situation. Also, another thing you can do is make a self-care box with a letter, and also write suggestions on things that make you feel better. Favorite hobbies and activities, your favorite TV shows, anything that brings you comfort. So basically, anticipate and prepare for tough times, but hopefully it will be mostly good times. As hard as it may be at times, try to enjoy med school, as after you graduate, you realize how much responsibility you will bear in this job. This personally hit me a lot more around the second half of my final year, after hearing and seeing what the interns were doing. Things like, pronouncing someone dead, attending met calls, code blues, attending family meetings where we discuss end-of-life care or palliative care, seeing complications, and seeing sudden deterioration of previously really well patients. Those are just a small subset of likely experiences that you'll tend to see as a medical student and beyond. From what I've heard, it is a very rewarding and fulfilling job, but there will definitely be some heavy and serious moments that will probably change who you are, or some moments that you'll probably never forget. So try to enjoy where you are in the moment, like I said, and soak up the time you have with your classmates. So I wish you the best of luck with med school and beyond, no matter what stage of life you're in right now. Try to treasure every moment, appreciate everything, and you'll be fine. If you've got any advice for your incoming medical students, feel free to pop them in the comments. Or if this advice was useful, please come back in 1 year and let me know. Best of luck, you'll be fine. Bye.